guys, it's me Lolly, and Pop, of course. So a fun fact about me is I like to read, mostly mystery books. I usually read over the summer, and this summer, while I was reading, I noticed that my bookmark, well, it's seen better days. So I went over to the corner of my desk with my incomplete deck of playing cards to replace one card with another, and then realized I'm an artist. I can make my own bookmark. And so that's what I'm doing today, painting on playing cards to use as bookmarks.
Okay, so firstly, we have to decide which one of these cards is in the best shape, best quality of card to use. This is not a full deck of cards, hence why I keep grabbing from it.
I went through the deck trying to find the firmest ones so that they wouldn't bend like the current card does, and they all ended up being from the same deck.
Okay, well I have 3 really firm ones to choose from to begin with. So we'll start with those, and we'll see where we go from there.
I started off by putting a base coat of white paint on each card. I don't have gesso or anything, so it's not anything fancy, it's just acrylic paint.
Ooh, is this not gonna stick? I didn't even think about that. It's a rather smooth surface. Well, hopefully it sticks, because that would be bad if it didn't.
It would be bad if it didn't stick. And you're still painting, so it's even worse.
Okay, the paint is not sticking. So, sandpaper. Sandpaper is huge, and it's definitely been used. However, my dad's closet is scary, and this is the first one I found, so we're using this.
So yeah, I eventually got out sandpaper. I was really avoiding it because I'd already painted on so many layers, so I was just gonna force it through, but it wasn't gonna work, it wasn't gonna stick, so I had to get it out.
My hands are so blue.
When I first started sanding, I was doing it like really gingerly because I didn't want to bend the cards or anything, but at some point I completely gave up. Like, look how rough I'm being with the cards right now. And now we're back at it again with the paint. Let's just zoom through this really fast because we already watched me paint a bunch of layers and we don't need to watch that all over again.
Okay, both sides have been painted white. I'm a very messy painter. I took many a coats, what really shouldn't because cards are light colored. Anyways, they're done now. That's the point. So I'm gonna pick one and I'm gonna start on a design on it.
Now we get to do fun stuff. Boringly painting it a solid color is over. So now I'm going to paint it a solid color, black. Very exciting, so we're gonna zoom through this quickly. Hopefully this doesn't take as many layers. Spoiler, it did take a while because I kept putting it down when it was wet so it would rub off a few spots, so I had to go over them again. And now we're coming in with the paint pens. That's right, we're going to be drenching on this. This color does not last. I ended up changing it, and you can see all the other colors I'm going to use. I tested them out on that black spot over there. This design is inspired by a video game. You may be able to guess which one, judging by me telling you it's inspired by a video game, because there are only like 3 options, and it's way too bright to be FNAF.
I have no idea if it's doing this because that's just how these paint pens work on like acrylic paint like this, or if it's because it's not dry. It's probably because it's not dry, but again, I'm impatient, so we're just going.
Yeah, it's definitely because the paint's wet, but I was not waiting. See, if the paint would have stuck on the cards, I wouldn't have gotten the sandpaper out. I would have just forced my way through it like this. But even though there's easier options and ways to fix problems, I end up making more for myself. It's just how I do it. I don't know why.
Hello.
Hello.
Come in here yesterday.
What's that in tablet?
It's the sketch I made for what I'm painting.
What are we painting?
Bookmarks.
Oh, that's so cute.
So that would be my younger brother. And now thinking back on it, it's probably why I took so long painting this side card. Not just him, but also because my younger sister was in there talking with me. But don't worry, you won't hear that much of them.
Okay, right there seems to still be wet with
Yellow.
the black paint, so.
Waiting.
See, my brother understands. We just can't wait. Maybe it's a family thing. But anyways, if you haven't figured out what this design is inspired by yet, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you it's a Splatoon inspired design. Of course it is. I pretty much can't do anything that's not Splatoon inspired. So yeah, if you were like thinking about subscribing, first off, thanks. But you gotta get used to looking at Splatoon stuff, even if you don't like it.
Is it still dry? Do you want me to test?
It's like more or less dry. It
Is it
should
running
be
out of ink?
sticking. No, that's not the issue.
Yeah, newsflash past me. It's because it's still wet, and you won't just sit there and talk to your brother and let it dry. Oh, the pink one exploded on me when I first opened that up. So that was fun. But I finally moved on from the yellow and I'm gonna let it dry. Thank goodness. Oh, now we've got purple. So I picked these colors mostly because 1, yellow is my favorite color, 2, purple is my second favorite color, and then I needed another color to go with it, and pink looked good. It was pretty simple. However, what gets me mad about this is that I did yellow first. Yellow's my favorite. Gonna put down yellow first. But it ended up then being the least amount on there, because I moved everything else around the yellow. Well, okay, technically it's the biggest one, so the least is purple, but the most is pink, and pink is not technically on my list of favorite colors. So anyways, that sort of bothers me. Also, about now, I was thinking that, oh, if I had used a blue, it would have literally been Lolly's colors. Pink, wait, I would have to replace purple with blue. Never mind, that wasn't happening. Right now, I'm in the part of the process where I'm just fixing up edges and stuff. However, this process always takes forever for me because I just don't have steady hands, so I have to go back and forth and like 5 times on each spot. And it's really annoying, but it must be done. I'm also being really like tedious and focused about it because this is something I'm going to be looking at all the time, so I want it to be good and not like make me mad every time I look at it. I want to be able to use it and be happy with it. So I am trying to make it look really nice and being really focused about getting all the small spots. Now I'm going back over it with the colored instead of the black to fix up the spots that I ruined with the black and just to make everything even because the yellow was still having issues in that one spot that was really wet because I couldn't just wait. And now, in my opinion, the best part of this side of the bookmark, I added the inklings in the ink, 2 of them in pink and purple. Again, I didn't add something fun in yellow because I did yellow first and didn't think it through. That's my bad. But I didn't find a picture of what they look like in the ink. I looked it up. Didn't look that hard, but couldn't find a picture. So if this is not 100% accurate, it's because it was from memory. I did my best. Sometimes the best is not the best, though. My best is not the best. I added a black outline, which I wasn't originally planning to around their eyes because they didn't stand out enough, and I added some highlights into the ink. Also wasn't originally planning it, but I thought it looked good. Now we go to the back side. Starting off by fixing some of those white dots that you can see that are shining through, which didn't take too long, and I actually waited for it to dry before I started painting, so we didn't have any issues like that this time. I'm learning, I'm improving. As you can see, I started off with yellow again, which if you thought it was bad on the first side that there wasn't a whole bunch of yellow, it's even worse on this side. Also, I did an inkling in yellow because I prefer using inklings to octolings, and yellow is my favorite color, so that made sense in my head. But so there's only one inkling that you can really see, and it's the only one in yellow. So yeah. But otherwise, I actually really like this side, probably better than the first side. This one went a lot faster, which I'm thinking it's because this was the next day and my siblings were not in the room. Or just, I don't know, I figured it out. Probably because it wasn't wet, actually. That probably helped too. The longest part about doing this one was definitely the back and forth between the colors. Like at some point, I literally had to be like, okay, you have to stop playing around with it and just move on. Because it's never going to be perfect in your eyes. On this one, when I did the eyes, speaking of eyes, I did the black first because it was really hard to do the outlines on the last one, so I figured if I did the black and then filled them in with white, it was going to be easier, and I was actually like totally right. I also learned, because I hadn't really paid attention to this, also because I don't play Octoling, that the Octoling's eyes are like 2 perfect circles instead of the combined ones that Inklings are. If I had known that they were different, I would have done an Octoling on the other side instead of 2 Inklings, but I don't know, you learn something new every day, I guess. I added highlights to their eyes, and then I was done. Just a quick varnish on both sides, make sure you get the sides in between, and boom. I really liked how this turned out. I think it's a vast improvement to what it was. And the colors may not be very Splatoon, but they're very me. Now we get to start the next one. If the last card was a simple design on both sides, This one is going to be a complicated design on one side and a solid color on the other side. Well, not a solid color because I added a shade lighter and a shade darker, just blended in to add some variety, so it wasn't just one color. And then we got to the other side. I bet right now you guys are like, whoa, 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 why is this side already painted? Well, I tried to film the first layer or coat and literally hit record. But for some reason, as soon as I hit play, it didn't go. Like, you can literally see I'm about to go flip the card, but it didn't keep recording. I don't know why. Anyways, the color I'm doing for the background is a darker and more saturated version of the color on the back side of the card. I just wanted to keep them like similar. It's all one color palette, so right now it looks really dark, but you gotta trust the process. It ends up looking really good. And right now I'm adding a squiggly line. Do we all know what the squiggly line is? Can you figure it out? Anybody got any guesses? The color I used to shade the squiggly line with was just the mid-tone of the background. So this was just like a really lighter version of the background color. That way it all, you know, it was cohesive and together. Just being smart about it. It has nothing to do with the fact that I'm really bad at mixing colors, so I was just adding white to things. Nothing with that at all. So now I'm adding another tree. Yeah, the squiggly line was indeed a tree. I think you can tell that by now. Just coloring it all in, you know, getting it all down. This one is more reddish than the other one, which is more blue. That's because this one is more in the foreground and the other one's the background. So the other one has to blend in with the background more, because the background is a bluish color. So yeah, the idea of this is kind of inspired by a really, really, really old drawing I did. Maybe not really, really, really old, but really old. It was like off of one color palette, and it was a blue forest with like fairy-ish things. So I don't know, keep that in mind while you're guessing what I'm drawing or painting. I'm adding indents into this tree. That is because this tree doubles as a bookshelf. Wow. It's because it's a bookmark. I'm so smart, I know. But I know, a bookshelf on a bookmark is not that original of a design. I'm aware. I ended up making these shelves uneven the first try, so I had to go over them and fix that up. But I started adding some highlights to the back tree first, so I could let it dry before I did that. Look at that, I'm improving. Just adding highlights all around, mostly because I wanted this front tree to be more red, so I was adding more of a purpley, reddish color to it. Now I'm going in and fixing those bookshelves. I wasn't too worried about them being like perfectly square or anything, because I kind of wanted it to look more natural as a bookshelf in a tree can look, you know? Oh, right there, I wasn't happy with how gray the background was looking, so I just like added a bit of water to the blue like straight out of the bottle and brushed it on. I can guarantee that's not how you're supposed to do it, but that's what I did. Now I'm adding the books to the bookshelf. Started off with a green, and nope, that one's yellow. I had a bit of a hard time spreading these around, and the yellow and green I mixed pretty easily, but the blue and the red, I wanted them to be darker, but it was hard to make them dark enough that you could see them behind the dark blue in the background, but not too dark that like it was really jarring to have such a dark color right there. But I ended up getting it. You can't really see them right now, but once I add some more shading and highlights to it, you'll be able to see them a bit more. Fixing them up, trying to make those a bit more straight than the bookshelves themselves, because those aren't natural. You know, books don't grow on trees. They're paper, so a little bit, but we're not doing technicalities around here. Anyways, I did a lot better getting like these to be straight and stuff than I did on the Inkling one with those lines. I don't know why. Maybe I was just more focused. Maybe it was that I was just doing it all with paint instead of having to drain to anything. I don't know. I can't tell you. I'm weird about that sometimes. Okay, now I'm adding a bunch more highlights to literally everything. It's gonna look really random right now where the highlights are, but I promise you I have a plan. It's gonna make sense. And for the highlights, I didn't mix a new color for the blue and the red, since I could just use the same purple that I used on the tree on those and get away with it. But for the yellow and the green, I had to mix a new color for each, which of course I struggled with a little bit because I'm not very good at mixing colors, but we figured it out. And then I added some details on them, mostly in gold on the blue and the red, and then in the blue I put on the yellow and the green, just to try to add some interest into the books so they're not just, you know, plain colors. Not all of them, some of them are, but just to make it cooler. Now I'm adding little grass. And I started off with a mid color, but it would blend into the trees, so you couldn't really see it. But I'm gonna end up adding a darker and a lighter just to, like, you know, add some variety and make more depth. And now you see one of my favorite things that I planned out about this bookmark is that it's actually reversible, so it can go upside down and it still works perfectly fine. The grass and the leaves coming down from the trees are the exact same, and it works perfectly fine upside down. I thought this through, was really proud of myself. Yeah. So I added some more variety of the grasses or the leaves with a darker and a lighter color. You couldn't really see the darkest color on the background, like the blue in the background. You could see it against the trees, and I was really worried for a minute that it wasn't gonna look good, like there was always gonna be a bit where there was like no leaves. But then I added the lightest one, and that really brought it all together, made it look great. So I might have added too many of the light ones, but whatever. I don't care. I think it looks good. You guys can decide on yourselves if you think it looks good. Now I'm adding little lights, which is why the highlights are all weird, because they're not coming from one spot, they're coming from multiple. I started really light in the background because they're farther away, so they're not going to be as bright. But then slowly, when I move to the foreground, it's going to get lighter. And I always made sure to add highlights to whatever these lights were around. They're like fairy things. It's like a fairy tale forest, you know? But like, I didn't like draw out the fairies. I'm saying a lot of lights. Like. Apparently, that's the only word I know. So I drew the fairies and added a bunch of highlights for them. I tried to make them really light, and so they were really noticeable and they stood off against a really dark background. That's why I kept things really dark and muted, because I really wanted these to stand out and be bright, and then those highlights would then lighten everything up. So everything was just building up to this moment when I would finally add the fairies. It was really trust the process before I added these fairies, but it was so worth it. I absolutely love this one. I added varnish from the front and the back and on the sides, then I was done. And let me tell you guys, this one was probably my favorite one. It looks so good. I love the design. It's so fairy, and I love the colors. It's just so good. So yeah, I really liked both of these, but my favorite and probably future go-to is gonna be the forest fairy one. I know I did 3 to begin with, but I didn't have time to do the third one, and this video is getting kind of long as is. So I think we end it with 2. So yeah, bye!